Good morning. Oh, you're muted.
Mute. How's that?
That's much better. How are you?
Good.
It's so good to see your smiling face.
Just good. I'm smiling.
Yeah. Happy Monday.
Yeah, same to you.
Thanks. Hey, Brandy. Dave, this is Brandy Peters. She's our community resource navigator.
Hi, Brandy.
Hi, I've heard so much about you. You inspire me.
What? That's scary.
It's nice to put a face and actually get to meet you. Or meet you, you know. He froze.
Oh, he did. Recording this session, so we'll send an email out to all of you afterwards that'll have a recording of this, because we know that there were lots of people who couldn't make it today and we were hoping that they were. So I am going to turn this over to Margaret Firerobin, who is the board chair for Bristol's Promise, under which the Bristol Connect Workforce Sustainability Program operates. So Margaret, you can take that away.
Thank you very much. So I want to welcome everybody today, and some of y'all are regular joiners with some of our programming, and for some of y'all this is the first time. And we are so very excited to have Dave Barrett with us today to share his and Cascade Engineering's experience with their workforce sustainability program. We are sorry that we're on technology instead of in person, and we were looking forward to Dave joining us for several different events, but we're hoping to build that relationship and have him back in person in the future. Just a little background: Bristol's Promise is a 20-year-old organization focused on children, youth, and families. We've worked primarily behind the scenes, holding our Youth Networking Alliance meetings every other month. And we have been responding to opportunities and also to gaps. We wrote the first Sullivan County Anti-Drug Coalition grant, and they remained with us with our being fiscal agent until about a year ago. We're a partner with Twin City Reads, and that group's responsible for the toddler board book. It's Bristol Baby, that hopefully a lot of you are familiar with, and other things. In the past several years, we focused on ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, and Trauma-Informed Care. Becky Haas, who is our regional champion, has been a huge friend and partner with that work. A year ago, we were awarded a Department of Children's Services ACES grant for innovation. Our program with that, besides building ACEs and trauma-informed care community, our program is a workforce sustainability program, Bristol Connect, which is supporting employees in the workplace, providing workers who may have ACEs with support, and helping them stabilize to go home to their families and thereby reduce ACEs and trauma for their children and families. The grant is to develop the program with the intention of expansion and scalability and replication. We're grateful for this opportunity awarded us by the Department of Children's Services. It's a very, very exciting partnership, and we are just so pleased. We're completing our first year of a possible 4-year grant. We also want to give big thanks to United Way of Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia for their support all around in everything that Bristol's Promise takes on. It's in partnership, but especially for this Bristol Connect program, we received initiative funds that help us with some of the things that are not covered by the grant. So it's a huge part of our success. Also, thanks to Bristol, Tennessee, Virginia Chamber of Commerce. Our membership with them and their support of us is very valuable. We found this workforce sustainability program first in Burlington, Vermont. It actually came from a contact that our daughter had with work that she did at Aspen Institute out of DC. Since then, we've learned that there's several programs around the country, but at this time, from the work we've done, we're not aware of any other programs like this in the Southeast. So that makes us even more exciting to be beginning this work. Objectives of the program include, besides the general support, providing employees with loan options other than cash advance, which is a real problem, particularly in Tennessee. Connection to help with tax filing, with GED, with education opportunities, education classes in finance, parenting, and opportunities for also providing some ACEs education for employees, their supervisors, and the employers. Longer term goals including recognizing businesses and employers who have and institute family-friendly business policies, and business and community education around livable wages. I want to introduce the Bristol Connect team, Melissa Roberts, project coordinator, and also technology person extraordinaire, and multitasker, has been leading this and just is fantastic. And Brandy Peters, who came on just a little bit later than Melissa did, is our first community resource navigator, and she's the one that's out there actually doing the program, and she continues to be very enthusiastic, and we're just, again, very exciting. It's a great team working together as this program gets off the ground. And as you all know, particularly during these COVID times, it makes everything a little more challenging than it would be already challenging. Melissa will introduce our guest speaker, but I wanted to introduce Carolyn Farrell. She's an active community leader, including past president of the Bristol Chamber of Commerce, of the United Way of Bristol, Networks, Sullivan County Partnership, active in her church, so many different community roles. She serves as the Vice President of HR and Community Relations at the Robinette Company. And she joins us today as our first employer signing on with this program, to talk just a little bit about Robinette's experience with the Bristol Connect program so far. Carolyn, we thank you so much, and we were noting earlier about the Vols are winning, you said, so if you want to take it and share a little bit, we appreciate you so much. And thanks to all, and again, welcome.
Yes, thank you very much, Margaret. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I'll be brief because I know we're all excited about hearing Dave and what he has to say about his experiences. But just a little bit more about me. I've been in human resources in one aspect or another for over 20 years. And during my career, I've had an opportunity to meet a diverse group of individuals, as Mary Lee could probably attest to. Diverse, interesting is probably more like it. Some of those individuals have had a troubled past, whether it is from an adverse childhood experience, just plain old bad luck, or from making some really bad decisions that somehow just snowballed during the course of their lifetime. And so as an employer, I've always struggled as to what to do. Where do I send them for assistance? And will they get the runaround if they get there? And if they are able to get an appointment, will they see it through? And of course, my obligation to my employer is how can I keep that person on the job and ultimately keep them employed? Now, the United Way of Bristol has always been a really great resource, but I've always thought it would be a wonderful thing if there was one central location of assistance for employers. So when Margaret and Melissa and Brandy presented this program to me, I was extremely interested. We signed up the first week in March, and it wasn't a hard sell to those who I report to. They were like, yeah, well, this sounds like a win-win thing. So like I said, we signed up the first week of March, and we all know what's happened since the first week of March. We were able to have meetings and educate our supervisors. We have about 340 employees, so we had to educate the supervisors before we could educate the production employees. But due to COVID-19, we weren't able to get in front of our employees until just starting in June, and due to this downsizing, reduced size of the meetings, we've had to do like 30 meetings. And so Brandy has lived through a bunch of meetings. So if she looks tired, have pity on the poor girl. She's really worked hard. So we got those finished up and we're ready to start the process. So I don't have a lengthy progress report except to say that we've already had some response from our employees. Now, during the pandemic, when everything was kind of shut down, we were still running 24/7 because we're essential services employee. So during that time frame, we did have some supervisors that referred some employees, and they were able to call for assistance, and that has been very positive. I think there was about 6 folks. So just to wind this up, I just want to say, I applaud Margaret and Bristol's Promise for seeing this need and offering the opportunity through Bristol Connect. We've enjoyed our new relationship with Melissa and Brandy, and we have a really positive outlook for our partnership and the program for the future. So thank you very much, and I will turn this over back to Margaret, or Melissa's going to introduce Dave, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Carolyn, for your support of the Bristol Connect program and for partnering with us. We really enjoyed our time and are looking forward to kind of getting back in there with you. So when we first began the task of building a workforce sustainability program for our area, we looked to other locations who were doing similar work. And what we found was very few programs and none in the Southeast, as Margaret said. However, through our United Way, we were introduced to the United Way of Jackson County in Michigan, who introduced us to Cascade Engineering and Dave Barrett. So in 1998, Cascade Engineering embarked on an effort to create a program with the express purpose of helping their community and their workers. And after 2 previously failed attempts in 1991 and 1995, a 3rd attempt was made to create a program, and the 3rd time was the charm. And there are lots of lessons that they've learned along the way to develop their program, but the company has recognized both tangible and intangible benefits, such as reduced turnover, improved employee practices, and increased employee pride. And the success of the program has influenced the formation of community and business-based collaboratives that bring everyone to the table to create a stronger community. So Dave Barrett is with us today, and he has been with Cascade Engineering for 38 years. But okay, so as the Director of Talent Management with company-wide responsibility for talent development, employee learning, and education programs, as well as organizational and individual development initiatives. Dave has held various positions in maintenance, operations management, human resources, and organizational development, and views his ultimate role in the company as keeper of the culture, working to create an organization where people love to work and helping Cascade Engineering become an employer of choice. Dave earned an MBA from Davenport University and has received his certification as a certified manager from the Institute of Certified Professional Managers at James Madison University. He's also a senior certified professional in human resources through the Society of Human Resources Management, and is also part of the faculty at Davenport University, where he teaches courses on sustainability. So I am going to turn this over to Dave. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you. Can I share my screen then?
You sure can.
All right, well, let's do that. And here. So, can you see it?
We can.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be here. There's one thing I really love to talk about, and that's Cascade Engineering. So this fits in what I like to do. So thanks for that introduction, Melissa. So I titled today, Welfare to Career Lessons Learned, a 22-year journey. And as you heard, the Keeper of the Culture title was something given to me by the founder about 25 years ago when he pulled me aside and he says, not only are you in charge of talent development, but I expect you to be a keeper of the culture. And so you'll hear a little bit about that culture today. I am the Director of Talent Development, and my department is responsible for leadership development, employee development, and cultural development. So just in case you don't know, Cascade Engineering, we are a manufacturing firm. located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, about 370 million in sales of last year. I'm not sure what this year will be. 1,600 employees worldwide, because we do have a company in Budapest, Hungary called Cascade Engineering Europe. We also have locations in Brownsville, Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, Montpelier, Ohio, Mount Airy, North Carolina. And so we are an injection molding company. We make plastic components for office furniture. We make containers, so we make garbage cans, cheese barrel, produce bins. We also service the large truck industry, making components for large semis. And then we have a large automotive group that services automotive in Europe and automotive in US. So, you know, Cascade Engineering is I think, a fairly unique organization. And we spent 3 days one time talking about why does Cascade exist? And we come up with this: our purpose is to have a positive impact on society, the environment, and be financially successful. And today that's called the triple bottom line. And so this is for organizations that believe you can do good things for people, you can do good things for the environment, and you can still be profitable. And so today it's about really the people side. And so internally it's about how we treat our employees. And so we talked about being an employer of choice. Well, I'll share with you some of the inputs to being an employer of choice. Externally, it's about how we help the people in the communities in which we reside. And that's where the Welfare to Career program comes in. Fred Keller, who's the founder, Fred likes to say this: businesses should find something good to do and then make a good business. And so these are some of the good things to do that we claim. One, we do have a reentry program. We hire ex-felons. And interesting thing is that we had felons working in the company back in the 70s. So it's not new, it's just that now it's a little bit more intentional. And this individual is Jahan McKinley, and Jahan spent 19 years in prison and then came to us through an organization called Hope Network. He started as a machine operator, became a level C admin in our pay for contribution program. Then he advanced to a frontline leader or supervisor position, then plant manager. Now he's the manager of our Cascade Enterprise system in Brownsville, Texas. And the point I always like to share is that, you know, what would we have missed in Jahan if we had not been willing to hire felons? And so that's our reentry program. We also make pink garbage cans. So if you've seen a pink garbage can, that's a Cascade can. And we have a deal with the American Cancer Society. For every garbage can we sell, we give them $5. In the last 10 years, we've given them over $700,000. And we've sold over 150,000 carts in the US and Canada. We are an anti-racism organization. We put that stake in the ground about 5 years ago. And from that has come our efforts, and we are a certified partner for a racism-free community here in the Grand Rapids area. I think we're the largest organization. We hold a Young Professionals of Color conference every year. This is our 4th or 5th year, I can't remember. And then we also created a unique program called Diversity Theater, where we actually hire actors and actresses to come in and act out, unfortunately, real life scenes that have happened in our organization. And then we engage the audience in a conversation about that. We do make bio sand filter containers, and then we have a partner, a nonprofit, who then is in the distribution of these things. And then today I'm here to talk about the Welfare to Career. And this is Amy Valderas, and Amy was one of the originals in the program back in 1998. And she today is a level C admin in our pay for contribution, which is really, obviously, admin is kind of you're being trained to be a supervisor. And so she's a great success story. We've got lots of those types in the organization. So let me tell you a little bit more about Welfare to Career. So the purpose of the program is basically to help bridge people out of poverty and to help them become self-sufficient economically. And so this is our formal purpose statement, but in essence, that's what we're about, trying to support those trying to bridge out of poverty. So Melissa said a little bit about our failures. So let me talk about those real quickly, because they're going to tie in later to some of the other information. So we first tried it in 1991. We were working with a nonprofit organization called Faith Inc. They would bring people off welfare rolls, out of poverty. They had light assembly work, so they'd bring them in, they would do the assembly. They would teach them work skills, some life skills, And once they are successful in that program, they could be sent to Cascade Engineering because we paid significantly higher wages than Faith Inc. did. So in 1991, we took 8 of their graduates into our organization, placed them into manufacturing, and within 2 weeks, all 8 were gone. And that kind of stung a little bit, you know, we're trying to do something good and they didn't stick around. So we have to say that was a failure. So we tried it again in 1995, this time partnering with a Burger King franchisee owner who owned 14 Burger Kings in our immediate area. And he said, we will be the intake. We will bring the people off welfare rolls out of poverty, teach them work skills, some life skills. When they graduate our program, we would recommend then they come to Cascade Engineering because we paid higher wages. Not one person graduated their program. So we felt like that was failure number 2. Sometimes third time is the charm. 1998, it was also the year that the state of Michigan had a program called Project Zero, and they were going to try to do everything they could to reduce their welfare caseload to 0. And so Fred said, maybe this is a good time, so we'll try it again. We called the program Welfare to Work. And at this time, the economy was going great guns, and we were having trouble getting workers. So we actually used this program and brought in about 60 from various programs and agencies around the city. Unfortunately, after the first 3 months, we were experiencing 175% turnover. That was not sustainable. So at that point, we were feeling like, well, we're failing for the third time. Well, a year later, we changed the name to Welfare to Career. It wasn't a name change, but this is where the real journey of success begins. So let me talk a little bit about what the success looks like. So this is our turnover. So this is for welfare to career employees. And so in 1998, 14.6, that's average monthly. So if you multiply it times 12, that's about 175% turnover. Notice it went up in 99 to 16.8, which would be over 200% turnover. So the program was really struggling in the beginning. But then in 2000, it dropped to 13.1. 2001, 5, 9, and you can see the trend line. And so between 2003 and 2015, we averaged about anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5% turnover. And of course, you see the spike in 17, 18, and 19. A lot of that has to do with an unemployment rate that's below 4%. And so there were lots of jobs out there. So if someone came to work and didn't like it, they simply could pack it up and leave. And you know, that's, you did see it's dropped down. Now I don't have 2019 numbers because our DHS caseworker who tracks that has not been here since COVID started. So we're a little bit behind in collecting that data. So that's welfare to career employee turnover. And so that's a significant cost savings to us. But let me show you non-welfare to career employees. So this is everyone else. And you can kind of see in 2000, 3.5% average monthly. That's the highest turnover in the history of the company. And that year I did a hard study. You know, there's green money and blue money, right? And, you know, I think the green money is the hard stuff. You know, that's like, you know, class time and paperwork and interviews and advertising, hard costs. None of the blue money, which is, you know, well, people are only 25% productive and 25% productive in their first 60 days. So you got to take out that productivity, and then 90 days or 70%, whatever it's funny money. So I did hard costs only. In 2000, that cost us almost $500,000. And a company that size, that's significant. But what I want you to notice is the trend downward. So that between, again, about 2004 and 2015, we averaged about anywhere from 1 to 1.5% average monthly turnover. The other benefit we got from welfare, I'm sorry, here's 2 of them put side by side, is all I want you to see is the same general trend followed. And the 2 things are connected, as we'll see a little bit later. So the other collateral benefits we got from the welfare to career was it's been written up in, I don't know how many magazine articles. It's a case study at Cornell University. It's a case study at Stanford, the University of Michigan. Yale has been in to talk to us and want to document what the process and program look like. We've won numerous awards for this program as well as some of the other. In fact, we won the Round of Brown Award in 1998 for the Welfare to Career program. And at that point, we were the smallest company to ever have received that award. And so that's a national award given out by the President of the United States. So we were pretty proud of that. And the point is that, you know, employees love to read about their company. They love to hear about their company winning awards. And so the collateral benefit is this idea of creating tremendous employee pride in the organization. And that supports our level 0 strategy of becoming an employer of choice. And so that's a goal that we have set for ourselves. And it's one of those goals you can't ever leave behind. It's never going to end. In fact, to be an employer of choice means that you're going to have low turnover and you're going to attract the best people. And I think if you're an employer of choice, you're going to have more engaged people. And that means your teams are going to be more effective. And our teams work on things like productivity improvement, scrap reduction, quality improvement, cost reduction, housekeeping, waste, downtime. If we do that well, we give our customers what they want. Because in manufacturing, your customers want 3 things: lowest price, highest quality, delivered on time. Well, if we have highly effective teams doing those things, because we have low turnover and the best people, because we're an employer of choice and our customers are happy, they give you more work, which means you become more profitable. And what can a company do with those profits? Well, one, invest in the company and grow it. And if a company's growing, it provides 2 things to the employees. One, it provides job security, because if you're growing, you're probably not laying off. And 2, it provides growth opportunities, because if you're growing, you need more supervisors, you need more shipping receiving clerks, more HR, more whatevers, right? You can also invest in terms of wages, increasing wages, paying bonuses, increasing benefits, 401k match. You can paint the break room. You can have a great summer picnic for your employees. And if you're putting all that back into the organization, it helps you be an employer of choice, which means you have low turnover and investment. That's why I drew the model as a reinforcing loop, because it never ends. It never can. What's the inputs? Culture. And the culture that we expect and demand from our employees is this: they treat one another with dignity and respect, kindness and consideration. We have to have a special kind of leader. We need servant leaders, leaders who develop high trust relationships, create an inclusive culture, have courage and provide performance feedback. And when they provide negative feedback, they balance that feedback with consideration. They're still talking to a human being. We need leaders who are listened to and are willing to be influenced by employee feedback, which means they must be approachable. Employees cannot be afraid to approach their leader, and even at times, they can challenge the leader. And then finally, we need leaders who are emotionally intelligent, which means in simple terms, they must remain in control of their emotions. When things get tough, our leaders are expected to remain cool, calm, and collected. Pounding your fist on the table, yelling, screaming, swearing at the employees, threatening and intimidating them is not going to be tolerated. In fact, that's one of the main reasons that leaders get terminated in our organization. The third thing, and it's highlighted red because this is where the pride comes in, and our community engagement efforts like Welfare to Career come in, creates tremendous employee pride. And I don't think you can be an employer of choice if people are not proud to work for you. And then there's other things, and I could spend a whole hour talking about each and every one of these, but the bottom one is probably, outside of the top 3, the most important. You got to have policies and procedures that support everything above it, right? So if you have a supervisor who is getting the job done, but treating people poorly, what are you going to do? And I know, unfortunately, a lot of organizations will forget the people side because they'll take the results side. And if that's true, I don't know how you can ever become an employer of choice. So now you might be asking, all right, so what changed? What changed between 1991 and today? So to do that, I'm going to go back to 1991. But really what changed is this book. We found this book written by Dr. Ruby Payne called A Framework for Understanding Poverty. And once we read the book, we clearly realized that we are doing all kinds of things wrong, and we do not understand the population that we're dealing with. So we used that book. We trained, educated HR, plant managers, supervisors in the Framework for Understanding Poverty concepts. And what this did for is it shifted people's paradigms about those in poverty and welfare. So let me go back to 1991, 8 people brought into the organization. I'm going to admit to you something I'm not proud of. I don't feel this way today. But if you had asked me, Dave Barrett, what I thought about people on welfare and in poverty in 1991, I would tell you what thousands of people have told me over the last 30 years, and that is they're lazy, they're unmotivated, they're ignorant, they got too many kids, they're abusing the system, and they're probably Black. And that was, in 1991, probably a prevailing paradigm out on the production floor where these people were placed. In fact, I remember the attitude that we had. You're in our world now. We're going to help you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. In other words, what do you hear? Condescension, arrogance. We got to fix you. I would have ran out of this organization too, because we were harder on those people than we were the rest of the employees, right? That's what Ruby's work has done for us. Shifted people's paradigms. It helped us overcome this human tendency that we have, and that is to judge quickly. Research says anywhere from 5 to 7 seconds. When we come upon someone we don't know, we are already putting judgments on them. It's prejudging. It's where the word prejudice comes from. So over the years, what I've learned is the only way you can move people away from that is to increase their understanding. And you do that by giving them new information and touching them at an emotional place, right? So the Ruby's work gave me personally an increase, a different understanding of the individuals who are coming out of poverty and off welfare, right? The way this works, if I can gain understanding, then I can move to the next level, and that is to respect them. And if I can respect them, I can come to even appreciate them. And if I appreciate something, I can come to value it. And if I value something, I want more of it. And so this is the journey that myself and a lot of the other managers and employees in the organization went through with Ruby's concepts. One of I think one of the most powerful concepts is this idea of hidden rules. And so we use this to kind of explain the hidden rules. So here we have 2 sports. We have football on the right and we have soccer on the left. Unless you're in South America or anywhere else in the world, that would be called football. So these are 2 football teams, but they don't play by the same rules. So let's just pretend that the US, the American football team, travels to South America, and we're going to play them in a football game using South American football rules. Who's going to win? Well, the soccer team, or that football team is going to win, because these 300-pound, 250-pound linebackers and linemen are going to be running up and down that field for an hour straight. And they can't use their hands, they can't tackle, they can't block. So, in fact, you better have a lot of puke buckets along the sidelines, because that's what they're going to be doing, right? Now, we flip it. The South American football team is going to come to America and play our football team using our rules they know nothing about. Who's going to win? Well, better have a lot of ambulances backed up, because it's going to be a bloodbath, because our guys have pads on. The only pads the soccer guys have on are shin pads. And by the way, we're going to tackle and we're going to block and we're going to hit you. And so they're going to get killed. Well, that same kind of idea fits right here. You have people from generational poverty coming into a middle-class work environment. They don't know the hidden rules of middle class, because businesses, law enforcement, schools, and social services operate using the hidden rules of middle class, which focus on 2 things, work and achievement. While those in poverty use the hidden rules of poverty, which are focused on survival, and they don't fit. And the same thing would be true if someone from middle class now had to go and live in a poverty neighborhood, a low-income neighborhood. How are they going to do? They're not going to understand the rules that you need to have to survive in that type of environment. So this is just one little piece of Ruby's work that I think has had a major impact on me, and I know it's had a major impact on other leaders in the organization. So this is kind of, here's that turnover again, and I want to show you how we reduced it. 1, we found the framework. Two, we were lucky that DHS put in our organization, placed 2 DHS caseworkers, Department of Human Services caseworkers on site. That means that our employees did not have to go downtown Grand Rapids to go to the DHS office. They could come right across the parking lot and talk to their caseworker right on site. That then allowed the caseworkers here to develop strong relationships with those people. And there they would therefore know what their needs were and they could help them. There's where we did the framework for training, framework for understanding poverty training. We also had an early intervention process, and it was simply this. The supervisors at the end of their shift would send a list of names of all the employees who were either late or didn't come to work that day or having performance issues. DHS would then look at that list and see were any of their people on it, and if they were, they would immediately call them and find out what's going on, why were you late, why weren't you here, why did you miss, what's the performance issues. And through that, they come to find out that some of our employees didn't have a home, they were homeless, they didn't have reliable daycare, they didn't have reliable transportation, they didn't have an alarm clock. In other words, they started to identify these things that were barriers to effective employment, and they would then start tapping into the resources to help those employees. We also started our new employee orientation day one, because prior to welfare to career, we held our orientation at 40 days. So if you were in the organization for 40 days and you were successful, then we gave you the honor and privilege of attending our orientation. Problem is, HR did a study, found out that 40% of our turnover happened in the first 2 weeks. They weren't even hearing about the hidden rules. They weren't hearing about our culture and the expectations. And so we moved it to day one, actually day one and day two, 2-day orientation. We also changed some policies. One was, if you have a sick child and you take them to the med center, to a doctor, that becomes an acceptable reason to miss work. Prior to welfare to career, it wasn't. If you missed work as the employee and you went to the doctor, you got a slip, you were excused. Then we said, wait a minute, a lot of our welfare career employees are single parents. And then we said, a lot of our employees are single parents. And so we made sick children as a viable reason to miss work. We also changed our pay for contribution system. And so because a lot of it in the initial stages, you had to pass paper and pencil tests. That's not from generational poverty. So we took that out, and as always said, to be hired in as a level A, just come to work every day and do as good a job as you can. And we'll pick up the rest of the training and pass and audits later. And then we also created a dollar cents class. It's basically a money management class because, again, one of the things people from generational poverty is they really don't manage money very well. But once again, we said, wait a minute, we got all kinds of employees that probably could use this dollar cents class. So we made it something that's required for all new employees in the organization, unless they've got a 401k and they can show that they do understand how money works. So and there's other things. This is really probably the big things that we did that caused the change in our attitude as leaders and as in policies and procedures that result in the low turnover. And so once again, I can just plot some of these in here. And so it didn't just impact welfare to career employees, all employees benefited. So I've done this presentation, I don't know how many times at different places, Memphis, Tennessee, and I was actually in Vermont early on with them. And I've been out in Colorado with different organizations, very similar to Bristol's Promise. And unfortunately, I'm always asked this question. How does your welfare to career program help your bottom line? Or how do your diversity efforts help your bottom line? Or your pink carts, how does that help your bottom line? And I used to struggle answering it. I would show them the turnover data right away, and I'd tell them about $500,000 for us. And but it wasn't good enough. There were still businesses out there that said, well, that's really not enough for us to engage in this program. And so I stopped trying to answer the question because if it wasn't good enough. And so now when I do the presentation, I ask them 2 questions. One, I say, what is your employees' dedication, loyalty, commitment worth to you? and I make them put a dollar value on it. So if I was in front of you right now, I'd be standing there until you gave me a dollar value. And they would get frustrated and they would say, well, $10,000 a person. Oh, okay. Somebody else would say, I had $1 million. And then finally somebody said, well, you can't put a dollar value on it. And I said, oh, okay, all right. Then the second question I ask is this: what is having a positive reputation worth to a company? Give me a dollar value for that. And now they really get frustrated and they quickly say, you can't, it's priceless. I said, I know it's priceless because I had all of our salespeople in a training class and we got done. Before we left, I said, I want to ask you a question. You're all in sales, I'm not. What is it worth to you as a salesperson to be able to represent a company that has a reputation like Cascade? And they said almost in unison, without hesitating, it's priceless. And I asked a second question, well, why? Again, I'm not in sales. Why is that so valuable? They said, because we'll be in a meeting with a customer or a potential customer, and they'll ask something like this: I read somewhere you guys have a welfare to career program. Can you tell us about that? Or you guys make pink cards? Or you guys move the box? Can you explain that to me? They said that extra 10, 15, 20 minutes that they get with the customer is invaluable to sales. And they said we would pay for it if we could. And so I say, well, then haven't you just answered the bottom line question? So that's how I answer that now. And so my last slide, and then I'll answer any questions you have. So our welfare to career program is really about building social capital, right? And social capital is the result of the efforts of bringing a collective intelligence to do good things, and for each of the entities involved in that social capital building process. So in our case, the welfare to career, obviously the program participants benefited. We benefited and our employees benefited with better policies and procedures. The agencies we were dealing with was Hope Network, Goodwill, Urban League. They benefited because they were placing their people. AHA benefited because we're now in their books, and of course they've gotten a lot of exposure through us. I don't know how many of her books I've probably sold over the years. And then of course DHS benefited because they were getting people off welfare rolls. And so that's the Cascade story. And so I know there's a lot more, but I said I'd make sure I'm done in about 30 minutes so then I could answer questions. So with that, thank you for your attentiveness, and now I'll answer any questions that you have.
And thank you so much, Dave. I mean, that's a lot of information, and you and I have talked on several occasions, so I appreciate you kind of going over it. So what kinds of questions do you all have of Dave while we have him here with us?
This is Carolyn. I have a question. So Dave, the money management classes that you utilized, did you do that in-house, or did you have someone like from a bank come in and do that for you? How did you handle that?
Well, we actually, there's an extension office through the Michigan State University, and they did it originally. And then after a year, so we took it over, and they said we could use their material, so we tailored it very much to what they did. Now we're part of the Source, which I know Melissa knows who they are. And this is a group of organizations, but now they have people who come and do that for us, free of charge. It's part of our fee for being part of the Source.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
And so we have a question in the box about the book, the Ruby Payne book. Is it production specific, or was your slide stating how it fit with your organization?
Well, we started with the framework for understanding poverty. That was the starting book, but that book truly is written more to educators. So a second book was written called Bridges Out of Poverty by Phil Duvall and Terry Druthie Smith, who actually came and did our training for us. That book is written more from a mentality of a business. So if I recommend a book for a business, it would be Bridges Out of Poverty.
Which we just ordered to be able to bring into our community.
Yep. That's a better book for what you're trying to do, yes.
Melissa,
And I just have to give Ruby the credit on that initial one.
of that at our office too. I'm going this afternoon, so I'll look and see. And if we do, and somebody wants one like today or tomorrow, I can get those to you.
Awesome, Lisa. Thank you.
I have a question, Dave. I'm Lisa Kofer. I'm the director for United Way in Bristol, and this is exciting to hear how successful this has been for you all. Have you seen other businesses in and around where you all are located take this on as well because of seeing how successful it has been for you?
I do not know of any other single organization that has wanted to go down this road, but there is this group called The Source. It was started by the president of Butterball Farms, which is a butter manufacturing company. And Mark would tell you he's a follower of Fred Keller. And Mark wanted to do a welfare to career program, but he didn't feel they were big enough to be able to support it. So the story's told that he was standing on the roof one day looking around, because he's located in downtown Grand Rapids. And he was looking around, he said, look at all these kind of smaller sized businesses. So he contacted all of those leaders and brought them together and started to pitch this idea. I'm sure it wasn't called The Source right out of the gate, but the idea of coming together and creating this entity that could do what our welfare to career program did. And so it's a group now, it kind of varies. Some come in, some leave. About 20 companies in that immediate area have joined The Source. So at The Source, there are DHS caseworkers sitting. There are also non-DHS caseworkers, because DHS can only deal with people who are getting benefits. These other non-DHS, they will help any other employees in an organization. So one of the things they do, they will help employees with FAFSA loans for their kids, right? Man, do I wish that they had been around when my kids were going through that. They help with taxes. So they will help low income with taxes. So that's the closest thing that we've, in our area, that is closest to our welfare to career program.
Thank you.
And there was a comment about how The Source parallels with Bristol Connect. So that was kind of the conversation there. So Wallace, you had a question. How did leadership respond to or feel about the mandatory trainings?
Well, most of them were receptive, but now I'll tell you, I hope I got time to tell you this story. So our frontline leaders, they're the frontline supervisors. They hated the program. I mean, they were vocal about it in the training. We don't want to deal with this. It's extra work. It's a pain. Right? Sending these emails out every day. We don't want to do it. But we said, well, it's not going away. Now, they had some legitimate concerns. So the program kind of changed based on feedback we got, right? Trying to make it work for everybody. So 2 years go by. We had to threaten to write up some of our supervisors because they wouldn't write up their welfare to career employees. Why? Because now they see them as what? A human being. They're not a pain anymore. They don't want to get them fired. They don't want to get them in trouble. But the rule is not, you got to hold them to the same level of accountability. So we said, either you write them up or we're writing you up, and we're writing them up. So it took a couple of years, but they started seeing them differently. Well, then 3 more, so now we're 5 years, 3 more years, 5 years in the program. Happened to have a black, happened to be a minority welfare to career employee. At that moment was being threatened with physical abuse by a significant other. She called her white female supervisor and told her what was going on. The white female supervisor got a hold of a white male manager. They got in their car and they were going to drive to this person's house on the inner city to take care of this. How do you think that was going to go? I know God's hand was involved because they got lost. Called back, got a hold of Ron Jimerson, who is the father of this program, and he simply said, you guys get your blanks back here. He says, you do not go to that house. So it wasn't something that happened overnight, but you had to keep at it, and you had to keep educating and explaining and letting people get experience. And so they went from hating the program to I'm sure they didn't think about putting their life in danger, but they could have, right? So it wasn't overnight that this happened. We had to keep at it, keep with it.
Thank you. So Lottie Ryans has asked, is DHS still on site, or was that just via a grant cycle? And also, who pays for the source caseworkers?
Well, all the company, for the source, all the companies, based on their size, their employee base, how many, pay a percentage type thing. And I think we were the largest company, so we were paying, I want to say, I'm guessing 20 grand a year. It's almost like an employee assistance center. Any of our employees can go down there now, whether you're on welfare decree or not, and then they'll give you the right person to work with, right? And DHS, we had 2 full-time up until 2008. We know what happened in 2008, the Great Recession, right? And so they pulled one out, and we were actually paying half of their salary in addition, right? So it wasn't just they completely put them here, but they took it down to one person. And then about 3 years ago, 2017 was another tough year, they reduced her time here to just 2 days. But she's down at the source the other 3. So our employees can still come over here, but it's going to have to be on those 2 days. Otherwise, they go down to the source. And a lot of them, because they live closer to the source, they just go to the source now.
And Lottie, that's kind of how Bristol Connect works. Each employer buys a share. And so there's more information that we'll be sending out about that, but it works very much like the source. So Tony had a question. How intentional were you early on in addressing social capital, especially bridging social capital that can bring the races together? And then also in getting younger employees more attuned to family harmony issues, which might involve planning your Maslow type, providing the essentials of what you can afford, a roof over your head. So how intentional were you with that?
We have our hour, right?
We have
I would
about
say
8 minutes.
You would have to know Fred Keller, the founder of the company. I have a letter sitting on my desk from 1976 when a man who was in prison wrote Fred a letter. However he heard of Fred, don't know, and asked Fred if when he got out, would we be willing to hire him? And Fred wrote him a letter back, and he says, when you get out, let me know, and we'll see if we can get you in here. And so we've never been against that. Fred is so much a believer in people, and he believes this: his company has a responsibility to help solve the social issues of our day. And education system's another, right? So he just believes his company needs to recidivism. We need to work on all those. So that's been part of our DNA for years. It's just the longer we went, the more intentional we got about it, right? So he attended an Institute for the Healing of Racism, which is offered through our Chamber of Commerce in Grand Rapids. At that time, it was 10 weeks long, 2.5 hours, 1 day a week. Now it's 2 straight days. It's called Facing Racism. And it's mandatory for all of our leaders to attend it. When Fred attended that in 1994, I think it was, he immediately came back, pulled me into his office, Ron Jimerson, who's African-American, and he said to both of us, he says, my company's not doing enough. He says, I want you guys to develop a diversity program. And so we did. We started working on it. Worked with a local consultant. We took it over. Then we made the requirement all leaders in the company must attend the Institute for Healing Racism. We also created diversity theater. In our orientation, we spent 3 hours, 1 hour on what's diversity, what's inclusion, why is it important. In the last 2 hours, we spend on the history of slavery in the United States of America and its continuing legacy on Black people today. I don't think there's many companies that are going down that road right now. But what we're seeing in America more than a result of not educating people on this for the last 100 years. And that's coming from a 66-year-old white guy who in 1991 thought that probably most people on welfare were Black. I'm just telling you, people can change, but you gotta touch them at an emotional place. And when we do the history of slavery in the United States, I guarantee it hits an emotional place.
Thank you. So we have about 6 minutes left. Anybody have any other questions? And Chris Aaron has posted in the chat Ruby Payne's website that has some other poverty resources if you want to check that out. Thank you for that, Chris. And again, Dave, I can't thank you enough for being here with us today and for answering these questions and showing us your model. And at this point, so Bristol Connect, the workforce sustainability program that we started, looks more like the source, which came from Cascade Engineering, which has kind of contacts all over our community, and each of the businesses buy in. In just a brief little bit, can you talk about how you encouraged or required people to come together at the table to have these conversations? I know that that's something that the source is doing, is requiring the businesses that buy in to do that. But how did that idea come about, and what kinds of things have come out of that?
I'm not going to understand the question.
So we know that the source is making the businesses come together at the table to have conversations about social issues, and you started that in-house with your supervisors. What kinds of things came out of those conversations when they first started learning about the things that affected the workers, and then having discussions around them?
What really came out was ignorance. They didn't really understand. No one had ever taught them this before. So we all hold on to those beliefs and values that we were raised with. Well, if you're middle class and you've always been middle class, you have no frame of reference, right? So it's just like racism today. What do we hear? Stop talking about it. If you stop talking about it, it goes away. No, it doesn't. That's just purely from a ignorant perspective. Right. So we had to get out what were their underlying assumptions, what were their underlying paradigms, and give them new information. But it had to make sense to them. And that's what we found Ruby's did. It just is logical. And so it's hard for people to argue against that. Now, in terms of bringing other entities together, Ron Jimerson did most of that work for us, and it was not easy. You were constantly challenging paradigms from all different. And I hate to say it, one of the things we found with social agencies, because he had at one time working on a different project, about 15 of them in the room, their main concern was who's going to get credit, who gets the monies we generate. And he said it was like herding cats. Instead of thinking, what's the ultimate outcome here? It was more, everybody was worried about their piece of it. So anyway, there's more to that story that Ron would have to share with you.
But that goes back to the culture that you're talking about, of building that inclusive culture.
Yeah.
I have a
Awesome.
question,
You know,
if that's okay. Dave, have you all ever brought in Ruby Payne to do training in your community?
oh, she's been up here many times, if not her people.
She is awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We've had her here in Bristol 3 different times, I think, but it's always been through the school systems.
Yeah.
We've never brought her in, or her folks in, from the business perspective, I think.
When I think that's what filled the voluntary Drewsley Smith, that's their area of focus. Ruby is focused more on the education, but I've had several chances to sit down one-on-one with Ruby and talk to her, and just, she's phenomenal. But then I have all their presenters, whether it's Terry Drewsley Smith, Phil Duvall, or geez, what's her name? There's another one. She's excellent too. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Any other questions? We have 1 minute. So Dave, again, cannot thank you enough. Carolyn, thank you so much for being here and for being our first business to sign on. I know that you have agreed to talk to any other businesses that might be interested in signing on with the work that we're doing. So, thank you all so much. I will be sending out another email to everybody that will have Dave's presentation slides in it. It will have a recording of today's presentation and some more information about Bristol Connect, about adverse childhood experiences, which is what we're trying to combat. So thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
So Melissa figured we could debrief for a second.
Yep, that's kind of why I was still here.
It looks like Dave's gone.
Yep.
Some folks may have left their desk.
You can tell who was paying attention and who wandered off.
Right. So anyway.
Do we want to do Hangouts?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So
See you
you'll
there.
in and do that. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.